Welcome to Off the Turf with Raging Cajun Softball. I'm your host, Greg Larner. This is the 2020 softball season. Let's meet our next guest. And it's shortstop Alissa Dalton. She's a senior. Alissa, what's up? Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No problem. I know you're a little under the weather, but I appreciate you pushing through. Let's talk about being one of the older players on this team now. Being a senior, how weird does it feel to be a senior now?
I still feel like a little freshman, so
yeah.
I kind of, whenever coach is like, seniors, like, tell them what to do, or seniors step up.
Like,
I know, I'm literally standing there. Yeah. He actually texted me last night talking about how I'm a senior, and I was like, why are you texting me that? But it's just really weird. Time flew by.
Yeah, it really does, right, when we're having a good time. What's the coolest thing for you personally about playing here in beautiful Lamson Park?
The coolest thing is probably the fans and just seeing like how much they get into it. We actually just had a mom that made earrings for all the parents that have our actual face on them. So now you see all our parents wearing like ourselves walking around, and
that's crazy.
There's never a game where people don't get into it. So I think that's pretty awesome.
That is pretty cool. What was the most difficult thing for you? Because you didn't start here. You played at Oklahoma. Mm-hmm. If I remember correctly, they were the defending College World Series champions at the time when you went and played at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And you played there for 1 year, but then you transferred here to Louisiana. Why Louisiana?
I really liked the culture, and I liked how different it was. It was the southern feel, the food, the family, like everything. And so I chose to come here, and I don't regret it at all.
No.
I wouldn't change a thing.
All right, let's talk a little bit about, you got an opportunity to play on the women's junior national team in 2017 for the USA. How did that all come about, and how cool of an experience was that?
That was probably one of my highlights of my life right now. Just not even the fact playing there, but the fact that we won the gold in Worlds. And it's just a whole, like, total different atmosphere, because you're not just playing like for a school or representing that school. You're literally representing all softball players in the country.
The country, so, yeah, the entire United States of America. That must be a cool feeling, because for me personally, and Sam will tell you, he's a big soccer guy. You know, when the World Cup comes on, that's the only time I really pay attention to soccer, because you have that sense of pride. So I can kind of understand that. But we're here in the batter's box right now, somewhat of a batter's box. I know you were kind of questioning it when we stepped in, but you are a left-handed batter. I wanted to get a sense for your stance and what your stance looks like, how it came to be what it is. So first of all, show me what you got stance-wise.
I don't know, I just stand. I try to get comfortable, I guess, is the main thing. Instead of like focusing on all mechanics when I hit, I just do whatever's comfortable at the time, because some days I'm more closed off, some days I'm more open.
Really? So that's interesting. Like from game to game and from at bat to at bat, maybe you change your foot placement.
Yeah, it's just whatever's the most comfortable for that day. It's really weird, honestly.
That is weird, because usually baseball, softball players are creatures of habit, where they want to feel real comfortable and get in the same exact spot, and they're all superstition, have to do the same thing every single time. But you're a different creature.
Yeah, superstition is a big thing for me, but as far as stance goes, sometimes my timing's a little off, sometimes my leg drives off, so whatever I do to gotta compromise for whatever I'm not feeling at best.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you later in the conversation, but you brought it up now, superstition-wise. What are some of your superstitions when you're playing the game of softball?
Well, you know my number's 22, so I have to do everything like twice, as weird as that sounds. So if you ever see me like swing and foul ball, if I have to swing one more time to equal 2, or if I am just taking hacks like on my own, I swing twice. It's exhausting in the brain, but
it doesn't sound it's not as crazy as it sounds, because honestly my number was 34, and every time I fouled the ball off or I took a pitch, I'd have to go and swing either 3 or 4 times, practice swing. So I completely understand where you're coming from at that point. But you mentioned your stance and how it's ever changing. What's your approach at the plate? I think that's always something to get into the mind of hitters, to get a sense of what their approach is.
For me, I try to keep it simple. I know a lot of players like to come up with like a game plan, like you're looking for a certain pitch. But when I try to do that, I overthink, and then I end up just taking all the pitches. So I just try to think see ball, hit ball, and my main focus when I'm playing is just to slow it down and breathe, because I'll get ahead of myself and I'll get anxious, and then that's when I get out of control. So just trying to breathe and see the ball.
That's something I don't think is talked about enough. And when I teach baseball lessons, that's a lot of times it's, okay, just let me be relaxed, because loose muscles are fast muscles. And I think a lot of people don't really get an opportunity to talk about that or even recognize that that's part of hitting. Now, with you personally, you said you're superstitious. How does Alissa Dalton go about preparing for a softball game?
Well, in the locker room, it's always the same. There's always a dance party going on.
Yeah.
So some days I come and I'm a part of the dance party, and then other days I just like to sit back and watch it. So
Is it dependent on how you're feeling, what the mood is, what the
It usually
vibe is
depends
of the
on-
dance party, the music?
usually depends on who we're playing, because if we're
Okay.
playing like a bigger team, everybody's involved. Like
Yeah.
we're trying to get the whole team just fired up. And then other days I'm like, okay, you didn't do so hot at practice yesterday. Like just focus down. And then if I need to, like I can come and hit early. So it's a day-to-day basis, because
Yeah.
this is a game of failure, so you got to figure it out
It's
how to
ever
make it work.
changing. It's ever changing. And now, talking about your approach at the plate and how you prepare for a game and whatnot, Coach Glasgow's been very adamant and talking about how he wants you to hit for a little bit more power this year. What have you kind of changed in your approach to hitting, for trying to hit for a little bit more power and maybe sacrificing some strikeouts, as he said early in the season?
Yeah, I have to.
Which is hard for you, because I know you completely dislike striking out.
He's working on teaching me that it's okay to strike out, which
It's
I've-
hard to grasp.
I was
that.
telling him the other day I struck out, and I was like, I don't know what to do after I strike out. Like, do I walk? Do I jog? Do I just stand there? Like, I don't, because it's not like, I don't know. I just don't know what to do. So he's just trying to get me to remember that no matter how many strikes or what the count is, that if I swing hard, the ball's going to go farther. But for me, my whole life, it's been like put it in play and beat it out.
Make contact.
So
Yeah.
he's trying to beat that in my head. Every at bat, he'll walk up and be like, "You're a hitter, hit for power," and I'm like, "Okay, got
I'm
it."
trying.
Like,
Sorry, Coach.
I don't do it on purpose, but you're right.
Well, it's you've been doing something one way your entire life. It's hard to kind of break that habit.
Yeah.
And that way of thinking a little bit. But you had a big grand slam a couple of weekends ago, and so hopefully that can continue, and you can continue just find that happy medium, because I
Yeah.
don't think you're going to get to as much power as he probably would like.
Yeah.
But you're probably going to hit with a little bit more power if you're constantly thinking about it.
Yeah, for sure.
So talk to me a little bit about somebody who's been influential in your life softball-wise, whether it be a coach, your parents, another player, somebody that you've kind of learned a lot from softball-wise.
Oh,
I know it's a difficult one.
I don't know. I'd have to say probably all my teammates, because every day, like, you're either learning about them personally or you're learning about the game, and it's kind of cool to see, like, in the middle of a game, you're learning stuff from the people to your right and to your left. Like, Melissa, third baseman, comes from France.
Yeah.
And so the way it is in France is totally different than it is here. So,
And she used to play baseball, correct?
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, her and Sarah Hudak both did that.
Yep. So it's just,
Interesting.
I think those are the most influential people, because if you're not inspired by who you're playing for, like, why are you playing?
It's a great way to put it. Now, talk to me about some adversity that you faced in your softball career. I know you have a ton of accolades, and you played at the very highest level that you can play at, but I think as athletes, we all kind of go through some sort of adversity, and like you said, this is a game of failure, so there must have been time where you hit a little bit of a slump, or you had to face something, an injury, something like that you had to work through.
Transferring was probably a big thing for me, because you come from like the top school, so it's kind of like what are you supposed to do after that. But then also, this sounds really bad, but once you have all like player of the year and all that put on you, it's a lot of pressure to perform. So I'm not saying like that's adversity, but I have a lot of expectations for me when I play. So I just sometimes have to remind myself that softball doesn't make me who I am. Like, my results aren't what define me as a person.
Yeah, you're not defined as a softball player. You
I gotta
define
learn
yourself, outside the game of softball. And speaking of that, you were named the Sun Belt Conference Player of the Year preseason-wise. You won it last year. How is it living with those expectations and trying to get to those expectations, where not only, because I know those expectations you have of yourself, but when the entire conference has that of you as well, how do you go about handling that?
I just try to be deserving of it, honestly. Like, not even just when we play, but I try to work harder than everybody. And I don't like when I find out that teammates are hitting extra and I'm not. So just trying to be the player in the conference, or in the country, honestly, that's working the hardest. So I'm deserving of the reward, because I feel like it wouldn't be right if they give me that and then somebody else is working harder than me.
That's true. That's that, to pull something from Kobe Bryant, that Mamba mentality, if you will, really getting after it and going as hard as you possibly can. Now, what is some of your favorite softball memories, or one that really kind of sticks out to you, whether it be the national team, whether it be an amazing game that you had here and experience, something like that?
I'd have to say probably winning the gold at the Worlds, or honestly last week at the LSU game, because the fans were insane. Like, every strike, it was just, feel like the stadium was roaring, like it was shaking. It was just crazy. But I was trying to stay in the moment and try to like really take it in because
it's hard because you want to stay in the game, but at the same point you're like, man, this is so cool, and I'm a senior now, so how many times am I going to get an opportunity to be in an atmosphere like this? So it's that fine line between, you know, taking it all in and really being focused in with what's going on in the game. But you are a senior, like I mentioned. What are some aspirations that you have after the game of softball?
Well, I'm actually deciding right now whether I want to get involved in coaching or not, but...
Are you going to try to play professionally maybe afterwards? Because we know Keely Milligan went on to play professionally.
Yeah, I was looking at professional or even international.
That's cool.
Like going overseas and playing, because traveling and playing at the same time would be pretty freaking awesome.
That is pretty freaking awesome, and there's nothing better than that. And we finish these conversations up with our Junior Cajun Corner. There's a lot of girls that really look up to you guys, and I've spoken to you about that before, and you take that very seriously, that role model aspect that you have of being a softball player here. What's maybe a tip or something that you would say to a young softball player that looks up to you guys?
I would say don't be too hard on yourself, and that all the sacrifices are worth it, because they might not feel like it at the time, like you're missing all the birthday parties, you're missing all the friend hangouts, but eventually it's going to pay off, so don't ever feel bad for working hard.
Yeah, and that's that Mamba mentality that we were talking about. Don't let anybody outwork you on the softball field, baseball fields, soccer field, whatever sport it is. Don't let anybody outwork you. Alissa Dalton certainly not going to do that. Off the turf with Raging Cajun Softball. Alissa, thanks so much for being with me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.